What should I paint today? There's so many cool things. I could paint up the Votan. Or the Chaos Commission. Ooh, or what about something rogue like a Tyrannocyte? Nobody wants that. What about... That's a video. In an ancient time, my older brother Jake also used to collect Warhammer 40k, and with his army, the Imperial Guard, getting a brand new codex in the next couple of weeks, I thought what better time than now to give a new lease of life to a 25-year-old Leman Russ battle tank. Stick around to the end of the video to see what he thinks of my new paint job, drop me a like, and also let me know in the comments down below what your oldest hand-me-down Warhammer model is. Let's get cracking. Now this thing is at least 25 years old and covered in dust and a thick layer of paint. It also seems like the turret on the top is made of metal, which I'm not sure is usual. Perhaps you can let me know, Imperial Guard players. In addition, there's been a bit of damage to one of the side weapons, so we'll have to look at finding a replacement. To start with though, we have to give this guy a little bath. Using BioStrip, I carefully stripped the paint off the model. Once I'd left it to work its magic for a little bit, I used an old toothbrush and then some metal tools to get into the harder to reach areas and scrape off the paint. Confirming my suspicions that the front of the turret as well as the guns on the sponsons were metal, I now looked back at the old boxed tanks for the Imperial Guard. I think this was at one point a Leman Russ Demolisher, which does mean we are missing the scoop off the front. Maybe one day I'll pick one up to fully complete this model, but there's plenty for us to do otherwise. With the model all stripped, I left it overnight to dry before coming back to painting. In the intervening time, however, whatever glue Jake had used all those years ago had turned into a sticky mess. I removed this using my patent-pending wet cloth, dry cloth method. I was prepared for there to be a few bits missing. The ones that I noticed were the side plasma guns, the top hatch, and whatever the pintle-mounted gun was on the top. For the side guns, I actually replaced the metal plasma that had remained on, as I had a pair of plasma guns which looked about right and would keep a matching set. I snipped off the back of these guns and attached them with super glue to the metal sponson attachments. Once secure, I used sprue goo, a mixture of sprues and plastic glue, to fill in the gaps. Now these Imperial Guard have also managed to get their hands on a heavy bolter from somewhere, which was secured in place with a paper clip for the pintle and some super glue. For the hatch on the top, I took an old Space Marine tank hatch, trimmed it to size, and again fastened it in place with sprue goo. Now I did get in touch with my brother to get his blessing for this project, and I asked him what he would like as a colour scheme if he were redoing his Imperial Guard army now. Without too much hesitation, he came up with the scheme Arctic Camo, which is a pretty cool suggestion off the cuff. I wonder what kind of Christmas-themed raids he's planning. Finally, with all the bits reattached and the sprue goo dry, I got to painting. I first primed white all over before giving a layer of light grey from Vallejo. Now time to camouflage this tank for whatever wintry world the Guard has been posted to. I took a large brush and drew wibbly lines over the body of the tank in Vallejo grey blue, not worrying too much about the roughness of the edges. This was because my plan was to next come in with a small brush to even out those edges with more grey blue. With the camo pattern applied, I next blocked in some of the metal details with black, including all of the guns and the tracks. I added Vallejo gunmetal to the front of the Demolisher cannon and other weapons and grates around the model. I also used this time on metallics to pick out the little Aquillas and battle honours across the model. Just because they're winter stealthed doesn't mean they don't want to show off their battle honours. I worked hard for those. Next I started on highlights and shades. I used thinned down black paint into the deeper recesses and then highlighted the blue sections with Vallejo blue mixed with light grey. For the light grey sections of the model, I just used a white edge highlights. Now the tracks needed to stand out a little bit from what was going on around them. I dry brushed over the black with gunmetal. I also did this on the inner portion of the cannon before shading all the metals with Nuln Oil. I'd also reattached the sponsons by this point, as they were also getting the white armour treatment. I was finding them quite large and plain, and I struggled to know what to do to make them interesting. I initially tried washing over with Agrax Earthshade, but this really didn't look right. However, some of the grates and exhausts did get a layer of this for some accumulating grime. To break up the white on the sponsons, I opted for sponging on some battle damage. First silver, then black was lightly applied using a sponge. Using the sponge helps to add a random effect to the application and helps sell the effect of chips and dings to the paint. I also used brown sponging nearer to the tracks and the bottom of the vehicle. To finish off the battle damage, I next added some heavier dings and scratches. This was achieved by using my highlight colours for the armour, drawing straight lines and circles to represent deeper gouges and divots. Into some of these, to show them going even deeper, I added black to either the centre or the underside of the scratch. This really helps to sell a shadow effect. Now this crew has clearly done something to be in the Imperium's good graces, or perhaps the opposite, as they've been rewarded with plasma weaponry. For the plasma, I kept it simple, applying orc flesh contrast paint over the white undercoat, and then coming in with thinned down moot green mixed with white, which I washed into the recesses to represent that sort of glow from the inside out. With that, this Leman Russ Demolisher is all done. I also showed it to Jay and he seemed really happy. He was very impressed with the turnaround time and also confirmed to me that he bought and painted this thing over 25 years ago. It's really nice to be able to engage with my brother about his old hobby. I'm sure some of you have older siblings who either got you into the hobby, are still into it, or maybe gave you that initial spark of inspiration to get started. Let me know your stories in the comments down below. Maybe I'll get him round one day to have a look at painting a model with all the modern tools like the airbrush. In the meantime, thank you all so much for watching this slightly different sort of video, and until we meet again, my name has been Ollie, this has been my hobby, and I'll see you next time.